inside the necropolis of the Orthi Petra at Eleutherna on Crete, which is actually central Crete on the northern ridges of Mount Ida, Psiloritis. The area was named Orthi Petra, that means the standing stone, and we could not realize at the beginning why was it. And later on, digging during the decade of the 80s and 90s, we understood that we had to cut down a huge olive tree, a part of which you can see over there still. So we realized that above a big tumulus of the geometric period, where actually funerary pyres, that means cremations, primary cremations, were gathered beneath this tumulus, we understood that we had a huge stone about 160 to 160 and 1 meter high, and in it there was a huge stone more than 4 meters high, as you can see its reconstruction there, and it was actually the landmarking of the whole cemetery, of the whole, let's say, Homeric necropolis. Why was that? We learn from Aristotle that mostly Spartans and Cretans are the peoples in Greece that used to have the cemeteries within the walls of a city, within the small villages that were developed into a city. So it means that they actually believed that since they could point out the tombs of their ancestors, nobody could claim their land. So this is one of the biggest ever found in Greece gravestones, and we believe, of course, that there are some others to find, but as you see, we have to dig up all these piles of stones and go to the eastern part of the cemetery. But after having understood what was going on with the tumulus and the landmark, this stone, which you could see both from the Acropolis, from all the houses and the top of the hills which are surrounding this valley, we came across to a very fine building which was totally destroyed, and we realized that it was, let's say, 1 or 2 generations later, built later than the Orthi Petra. The Orthi Petra is actually around, let's say, 700 BC, and the monument you can see here numbered 4A. This is its actual name at the excavation. We understood that it was one of the biggest buildings within the territory of the necropolis, and we gradually understood that it was a huge monument where no bones were found. So, the interpretation is that it is either a cenotaph or a small temple-like grave for the soldiers that have fallen in a war and never came back. So this is the first, so to say, the first unknown soldiers' monument in European history. Dated, as I told you, 1 or 2 generations later than the Orthi Petra, let's say around 660 or there, somewhere in the middle of the 7th century, we understood that it was also one of the most important architectural types of these monuments, which we know later on during the late archaic, the early classical period in Asia Minor, the islands, and in the rest of Greece. We interpreted it as a cenotaph not only because the bones were not found in it, but also because you can see 2 of them, but we have found 10 warriors who are holding their shields, their round shields, and in the front, in this false door, we found a part of a statue, of a woman statue, which resembles very much to the most famous counterpart, the Lady of Auxerre, now housed in the Museum of Louvre in Paris. We understand that this part of the statue was standing in front of this door as being, let's say, a deity separating the upper world from the world of Hades. The stone soldiers with their shields on the top of the monument are actually the effigies of the Curites who were beating their shields, their bronze shields, not to be understood that the Zeus child was crying and Kronos should not eat it. That means one of these Curites was named Eleutherna. That means the one that gives free birth to a pregnant woman. And from this Eleutherna was named. He was the hero, the hero's Ikistis or Ekistis. That means the one that gave the name to this city. And if it is the case, we understand that these soldiers on the top of a cenotaph were actually the examples for the soldiers of the city and especially for the youth, because they would imagine they would protect their city the same way Eleutherna and the Curites were actually protecting Zeus. The most important scientific result is actually that when we found the part of the lady the stone lady here in front of this door, our mind went actually directly for a comparison to the famous Daedalic statue of the Lady of Auxerre. And what we did, we asked the French colleagues from Paris to extract some of the material of the base of the Dame Auxerre and compare it with our statues here. So what was the result? The examination of the stone from the Paris Louvre statuette and ours here at Orthi Petra, after an examination petrographically and also with a microscope, gave us 99.73% the same material and the same stone. And we know now that most probably Lady Auxerre from the Museum of Louvre was actually stolen here around between 1868 and 1891. I'm trying to have a book published about this sleuth story on the Lady Auxerre and how the situation was in Crete by the end of the 19th century, and find out the circumstances under which the statue was stolen and went back to Paris. First in Auxerre and then to the Louvre. So, judging from all this material here, one can easily understand that it is not only the only necropolis of the Homeric age where you can actually find on the spot not only the architecture, but also the grave stele, the pithos burial, the cremations, everything in situ, which is not the case in other necropolises of the 9th and 8th century BC, because mostly, as you know, they just take the grave goods to the museums and leave it open. So we decided to cover it with these sheets of bronze as if we were protecting with bronze shields once again, the necropolis of the Orthi Petra at Eleutherna. And we have to understand that even in this rather small area, the most important thing is that this is the area where actually the verses of Homer can found their truth. It is the iconography actually of the burial customs described by Homer in the Iliad and in the Odyssey. And not only that, we now can say that Eleutherna was one of the biggest cities succeeding the Minoan and Mycenaean centers, and that its connection, although far away from the sea, about 10 kilometers from the north coast of Crete, it had two ports, one on the west and one on the east, which is Sfakaki, Stavromenos and Panormo, and direct or indirect relations between Eleutherna, the Aegean, Athens, Corinth, Peloponnese, Euboea, Dodecanese, Rhodes, Kos, Asia Minor, Cyprus, Syria, Phoenicia, Egypt, even with central Italy, we can get the most important materials of gold, of jewelry, of silver, of bronze, not only cauldrons and fiale, but also huge cauldrons and weapons. And of course, clay vessels, as well as different kind of materials like glass, crystal, faience, and other things. Of course, we have found even pieces of cloths within these tombs, either made here or brought from abroad. And between the grave stele and the big pessoi, like the Orthi Petra, these rectangular huge stones, we do find three different oroi, which means grave stele, of the Phoenician type within this cemetery. It is actually the same way if, let's say, you can cross a cemetery of Christians full of crosses, and suddenly you find three tombs with a crescent. That means that this society, the Homeric society of Eleutherna, the ancestors of the Minoans, were an open society to this difficult and unknown period, which mostly, even today, archaeologists name Dark Ages. But of course, in Orthi Petra, you can see the light springing out of this darkness, and you can understand easily how Crete proceed after the destruction of the Minoan palaces to what we call archaic Greece. This is the only remaining example in situ, because we have other examples, of course, but in situ, in such an environment that we would like to keep it for the next generations, for all the people, either from Greece or visiting us from abroad.